of the discussion to talk about what the unique programming that's undertaking in Memphis. Take it away.
You would think since COVID that I would know how to come off mute and speak to people, but we had a little delay there because I was just still talking. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tim Green Jr. I'm the Director of Capacity Building here in Memphis, Tennessee for Building Memphis. And we're talking a little bit today about our small business ecosystem and the work that we've been able to do here so far. So the mission of Building Memphis, is we are a community development association that fosters self-sufficient Memphis neighborhoods by strengthening our members and their communities and advocating for equitable policies and activating civic education. And we do that by working with the CDCs in our community. We are member-based. We have monthly workshops, monthly member meetings that take place as well. And when we're voting on things within our organization, all of our members have a say so in that. So our vision of a thriving ecosystem, we envision a thriving small business ecosystem in Memphis as one where local businesses are integral parts of vibrant, equitable neighborhoods. The ecosystem prioritizes access to resources, capital, and training tailored to the needs of small business owners and entrepreneurs, especially in historically marginalized communities. Collaboration also across sectors, government, nonprofits, private enterprises, and community groups is central to this vision. And ensuring that small businesses can contribute to Memphis neighborhood revitalization, economic mobility, and cultural preservation. Now, a working hypothesis. So, we are really working on building strong businesses for strong neighborhoods. One thing that's kind of unique to Memphis is that a lot of our CDCs here in Memphis focus a lot on the aspects of community development, um different parts of the of community development. So we might have some who are focused on housing development, some that are focused on business development. We want to make sure that our members know that the root of it is community economic development. So a lot of these organizations that we work with may be in housing and things like that, and then come to us and say, hey, you know what? There's a row of old businesses that are no longer there. We want to activate that space. We worked with them to try to activate that space for all people. The strategy, it prioritizes investing in neighborhood businesses as anchors institutions and driving economic growth within rather than relying solely on attracting large scale businesses. So the understanding is that businesses are anchor institutions of neighborhoods, and that local economies thrive as investments into neighborhood businesses increase, and those businesses grow. So that's what made us look at how can we really help the people in our community. With Memphis being a home for one of the largest populations of African Americans in the U.S., it has the potential to really affect the small business work we do here. We have over 41,000 minority-owned businesses here. However, the city lacks in small business vitality. So I talked a little bit about the anchors, but we're going to talk a little bit more about our hub and spoke model that we used when we started to work with these organizations more. So the challenges, you can only see half of. Oh, I'm so sorry. So, so the challenges that we're facing, barriers to capital access, have long existed for Black entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs. Implicit and explicit bias. There's also a missing middle when it comes to business financing. The Small Business Association lending map for Shelby County for 2021 indicated that most of the small businesses, business lending was done in Northeast Memphis on the census tract, which are not where there's a concentration of Black residents. And within Shelby County and the city of Memphis, there are persistent, significant disparities. and outcomes related to employment, wages, and economic security. Median wage for white workers is 56 higher than the median wage for workers of color with the same levels of education. And 1 in 5 Black workers are working full time and still economically insecure. Moreover, nearly 30% of young Black men ages 16 to 24 are disconnected from school and work. So our goals, the impact that we would like to make, Building Memphis would like to double its impact on small businesses by 2026. And we want to use something that's called technical urbanism. Building Memphis would like to continue to support neighborhoods by activating commercial corridors using the Building Memphis MEMFix program, which you'll learn about in a second, which has supported corridors like Broad Avenue, Crosstown Concourse, Southland Mall, Highland and Walker, and the Edge District. And you'll hear from one of our CDCs today and tell you how we activated one of their neighborhoods. And also ecosystem building, creating a collaborative network that specifically addresses business activity in neighborhoods. So now we'll turn it over to Marquita Washington, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the Community Navigator Pilot Program.
Hello. Wait a minute. Okay, we're in the same room, so we're getting our audio together, but hello. So I'd like to speak just about one of the ways that we wanted to address the disparity that we experience here in Memphis neighborhoods. Even though we're rich with culture and history and neighborhood pride, we, as you have seen, did encounter a lot of significant challenges as it relates to disinvestment. And so during the pandemic, there was further disinvestment. Businesses, especially minority businesses, were impacted by COVID-19. And so that was something that we really wanted to address in our communities. So this is kind of why the challenges, and this is what drove us to apply for the Community Navigator Pilot Program, the grant that we were awarded. Go to the next slide. So in applying for this program, just a little bit about it, in response to all of the disparity that we saw during COVID, we applied for this, was awarded grant under the American Rescue Plan that was enacted by the Small Business Administration. This program reduced resource barriers for minority-owned businesses in underserved areas by helping to provide funding to help with technical training and assistance in neighborhoods for businesses. So we saw this as an opportunity to not just address the need of support for small businesses in Memphis, but also as a capacity building effort for our member organizations. So we were able to we have a proprietary tool that we use for our members, member CDCs and CDOs, to be able to assess like where they are in different areas. And so one of those areas was economic development. We were able to determine that several of our member CDCs were doing some level of engagement and work around economic development and small business programming. And so we selected 7 of our member CDCs to participate in this particular Community Navigator Pilot Program. And we partnered alongside them. We hired 2 small business outreach navigators. I was one of them. We had another lady that was on board, that we worked alongside our CDCs with helping to build out a program. So we created a program design strategy that kind of just highlighted what the program goals were, what the outcomes were, what the activities of the program would be, how often they would do, different programming, and kind of really laid that framework first. Each organization had different approaches to it, but they were customized based on what they felt like would be their capacity of the organization, but also for the needs of the neighborhoods. And so through that programming, we were able to also connect with other small business owners who did business services throughout Memphis. And so we were able to use funds from this grant to kind of contract and come alongside other small business owners who did services like marketing, like bookkeeping or accounting, as well as like business planning. They were able to come along as consultants to provide actual technical assistance to small businesses throughout Memphis neighborhoods, these 7 neighborhoods. And it garnered a lot of great support, or great traction in our neighborhoods. And so we were able to help with like helping neighborhoods, businesses to become more bankable, because that was one of the challenges that they saw, and reason behind the American Rescue Plan was during that time of the Paycheck Protection Program, there were a lot of small businesses that could not take advantage of those PPP loans because they did not have the proper structure. They didn't have business checking accounts, things like that. They weren't structured properly legally on paper. And so this technical assistance kind of helped to inform and to help to support small businesses, especially home-based businesses, making sure that they had their paperwork, their structure and everything in order, as well as having the essentials that that a business needs. And so that was some of the things that we were able to accomplish during that time. All right, so some of the numbers that we had here. Key highlights were, so in the Heights neighborhood, we were able to host about 8 total workshops there. Average was 8 attendees. We had a total of 70, and over a 70+ neighborhood businesses reached. And that neighborhood, Whitehaven, was about 14 workshops that we hosted, 10 average attendees, 140 number total, and then as well as 140+ businesses reached over that time frame. Next slide, number 10. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it change. Well, I'm looking at the wrong thing. All right, so Orange Mound was 15 total workshops. We had 9.4 attendees, 141 total, and then 140 businesses plus in that neighborhood. Alcee Ball, as you can see, 26. They hosted a lot of workshops in Alcee Ball, about an average of 10 at each workshop, over 260 overall attendees, and over 260+ businesses that were reached in that neighborhood. And then for Fraser, we were able to have about 19 number of the attendees, the average, 281 businesses. They were one of our rock stars, and 280 businesses were able to be reached during that time. And then South City was 16 total workshops, 12 number of attendees on average, 188 total attendees, and then 180 businesses reached in that neighborhood as well. And lastly, we have Klondike Smoky City, another one, 7 total small business workshops and training. And then there were 10 average number of attendees with 70 total attendees, and 90+ businesses reached during that time. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, and so some of the key highlights of this programming that we were able to do was small businesses reached. So about 1,100 businesses reached across 7 neighborhoods. We were able to secure or be able to give about $250,000 in technical assistance support to 51 businesses. There was 25 CDC and CDFI and bank partnerships. We had partnerships with CDCs, CDFI and banks where they were helping provide technical assistance as well. Capital access, some of the businesses that were participating in the program were able to get about $35,000 average loan in grants in capital access. And then there was $140,000 invested into retail pop-ups in our incubation, neighborhood activation, like kind of culmination events that we did for each neighborhood. The small business breakdown of the businesses that participated in the program, retail was about 11.26%, cosmetics was about 10.81%, health 9.45%, food and restaurant was 7.6%, and then other, we didn't really have a number for that, but about 40% were non-employer firms, and then 18.45% of businesses made over $50,000 a year. And so, yeah, so that was our highlight of our program, but we're going to move on next to one of our CDCs who actually engaged in the program, and she can speak a little bit more about their experience and the impact that it made on their community.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. At this time. Yeah. All right. At this time, I'm going to welcome Ms. Quincy Morris from Klondike Smoky City to talk a little bit more about her CDC and also her experience through this Community Navigators pilot program. Ms. Quincy?
The Klondike Smoky City CDC was a part of the CNPP program, and we had a MEMFix event, which celebrated the Klondike Smoky City CDC history and culture, and our small business. Next slide. Next slide. And during that program, we had we did surveys to solicit people to become involved in the program. And this is a scene at our pop-up museum. Since Klondike is the oldest African-American community in the city of Memphis, we celebrated Klondike 125th anniversary. And we had a pop-up museum in an abandoned vacant building where we had the history of Klondike. We did oral histories, storytelling, and we also highlighted Tom Lee. He is a local legend here in the city of Memphis. Next slide. And this is a part of MEMFix where we decorated the streets and we had vendors. I think we had about 52 vendors that came from the neighborhood that sold their products. There were anything from food to garments and clothing on that strip that we had. We also had next slide, we had a DJ and a MC, and we celebrated the heroes of Klondike. Some of the people that were highlighted was Mary Rainwright. She is a community organizer and she worked hard. She works in the community trying to organize the community and get them involved. We also celebrated, gave Carolyn Watkins, she's a local attorney that lives in Klondike, and we gave her a 125 award. Next slide. And this is one of the vendors that was at our event. You can go to the next slide. During our CNPP program, we provided technical support to the people that signed up. We had workshops. We did we had workshops on how to do marketing, how to do a work plan, how to get your business license, and how to get funding. At our 125 MEMFix event, we had something for everyone. We had a kids zone where the kids could come in and have fun on the bouncers and play games. Next slide. And this is some of our vendors. All of these vendors are local vendors that do not have a place. These are home-based businesses that signed up for our MEMFix event. Next slide. And this is MEMFix Klondike 125, July 22nd, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Future Legacy and Festival. This is what we were celebrating. We were celebrating Klondike as a neighborhood. And we had on display some of the businesses that went through our program on this particular day. Next slide. We provided advisory services, technical assistance, and we customized the business to the local
It's Quincy.
businesses. Uh-huh.
I was like, that's back on me now.
Okay. Go ahead.
So much.
I was
Thank you, Ms.
wondering.
Quincy. So really quickly, because we're I know we got a little bit of time on our presentation. So we leveraged the work that we did with the CNPP program and talked to CNHED, also known as the Coalition, and talked about the work that we wanted to do for small businesses here. Heidi was a part of that conversation. They did a couple of visits to Memphis, and we started to look like what would it look like for us to actually build an ecosystem for small businesses here in Memphis. So our partnership with Truist and the Coalition looks a lot like this. The Coalition, you might have seen their work and what they've done in the previous webinar, and we are actively replicating what they're doing in DC. So that looks like me having meetings with Yvette. They're offering technical assistance for
No, I'm
me.
at work.
Okay, Ms. Quincy, I'm sorry, we can still hear you. And also they're customizing templates for us that you see in a minute. And then also me and Yvette have check-ins to talk about best practices. And this is what our ecosystem looks like. This is a 2-year partnership that we have with the Coalition and Truist. We've held stakeholder meetings. So those who are already providing technical assistance for small businesses, we've had them in the room. And we've discussed what a questionnaire for Memphis looks like. So it accurately tells the story of what these organizations do for small businesses. After that, we'll have a resource directory and then a workshop calendar that will populate with everybody's stuff in one place. And this is a small example of what has been done with the coalition. So once all of our members, all of our small business providers and support.
And the payment too, right? So they're supposed to be paying it upfront.
I think there's some, okay. So this is what it looks like in the end. Everyone fills out their questionnaire. I've talked to the developer. We put on our nerd hats. So it's coded in such a way whereas once this questionnaire is complete, we receive documents that look just like this. And we can print them out, put them in a big booklet, or like the coalition has done, it lives on their website as well. So anybody in our city can go onto our website or come and talk to us and we can give them all the resources that these organizations provide in one document. Okay. And then basically, I'll just run through this really quickly. Our plan for gathering the data, we're already doing these things. Our metrics are defining success, the number of entrepreneurs and partners and stakeholders that we engage, the data collection process that's going through right now with surveys and feedbacks. We had a couple of meetings with our stakeholders to get their advice on the questionnaire. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We started with what the coalition had in DC and started to make it fit for Memphis and decide what we wanted to put in, what we wanted to take out. And then our measuring our success. One is engagement, also the capacity building, capital access, business growth, and stakeholder collaboration are some things that we definitely want to get measurements on, and still talking to the coalition to get best practices for how they collected their data. And lastly, we're looking at just the overall implementation plan. We're going to foster civic leadership, create favorable advocacy and policy landscape, provide centralized resources, ensure access to quality training, diversify capital across the business life cycle, and opening access to new markets. And of course, we already talked a little bit about our outcomes already. And that's the end of our presentation. Well, this part of the presentation for us.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. Thank you, Marquita. Are there any questions? We have about 5 minutes for questions before we go to breakout rooms.
I will ask a question. So Devaney Perry, Executive Director of Building Memphis. One of the things that you all may have noticed within our presentation, it much is reflective of our city and our city's demographics. of Memphis, which is a largely African American city. And at that time, the SBA's call for support to reach small businesses really met and addressed the needs of businesses and neighborhoods in our community. With new political leadership who has a different take on DEI and addressing the demographics and the needs of certain demographics, we have the opportunity to support as a nonprofit the previous DEI goals of our our city government, but also still reach the business owners of Memphis that look like Memphis. So with that, being a partner of our city government in spaces where they cannot move forward with DEI specific or local specific initiatives that address the needs of business owners that are very much so represent who they are demographically. So I'm wondering if in any other cities, folks are partnering with their local governments in a way as nonprofit community development organizations that can really meet the needs of their localities.
Good question.
And Frank, I saw two questions here in the chat as well. One from Ron and one from Larry.
Thank you, Kadesh. Yeah, similarly, got to learn how to use the chat. Let's do this. Devaney, I think your question was kind of directed at, at everyone else in the room, which is a great question, I think, for the breakouts, which we'll be getting to here in 2 minutes. So if we could parking lot that one for everyone else, I think it's great for them to tackle that in the chat or in the breakouts when we get there. And I might ask you to re-articulate it when we send them off here in a few minutes, if that's okay.
Okay.
And Ron had a question. What are the outcomes? I think this is for Building Memphis and for Klondike Smoky City. What are the outcomes? Well, I'll let you read it from one, Briar Frost, Jim.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm going to go ahead and answer that. Ours hasn't. Can y'all please?
We got it, I think, Jim.
All right. So ours has not launched yet. So we are actually launching ours next month. So then we'll have that data. Now the coalition, their year 1 and year 2 has already taken place. So they have more data on that. That is CNHED as well. So I can definitely put their website in the chat. But ours actually launches next month.
Great.
And yes, I will share those slides. They have the slides, so we'll definitely make sure that you all get those slides. I'm sorry, I was trying to be mindful of time.
That's right. And yeah, I mean, as Tim did articulate too, they're replicating something that a sister organization of theirs in the District of Columbia has been undertaking for a number of years. Building Memphis is somewhat newer to it and making progress. From Larry Fisher, about how many partner organizations do you believe can be reached in Memphis through this hub and spoke model that you mentioned, Tim and Marquita? And I would add a second related question to that of my own, is that what do you think are the pluses, mostly pluses, but maybe pluses and minuses if we're being real, of partnership between you and your members? Like, what does Building Memphis offer that your members don't, and vice versa? So I think both Larry's question and mine are related.
Okay, so to answer that question, or to both, so how many organizations do we believe we can reach for connection? At the moment, I don't know that we necessarily have a number per se, but I will say though, the benefit in being able to act as a hub, and then our members being spokes, is that a lot of them have like capacity as far as staff is kind of is low. They may some of them may just have a couple people on the team. So being able to have dedicated staff that was supporting them in the work, I think was essential. And support also having like community development associations being able to support in just technical assistance, resources, kind of helping to be a mediator of sort in this work is helpful, because a lot of times our CDCs, at least in Memphis, they're busy doing the work, they're understaffed, they have a lot going on. So having that support and us being able to actually kind of be like specialists for them was really helpful. I hope that answers Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I want to
Thank
speak a
you.
little to that as well. I know in our meetings to get people at the table to just talk about the questionnaire, we held two stakeholder events so far, one in December, and I believe the other one was in April or May. The first one, we had everyone from the partnership to come and be present. So Heidi from Truist was in town, and then also Yvette with the coalition was here as well, to just walk them through exactly like, hey, this is exactly the work that we're doing in DC. And Building Memphis is going to be, we'll be working with Building Memphis to do that here in Memphis. We did a lot of leg work to get people in the room. A lot of people who may not often see eye to eye were in that room. So that's a real kudos for us. But so far, we have engaged over around 40 stakeholders that provide technical assistance here in Memphis for small businesses. And they even had an input on developing this questionnaire. So I think the biggest thing for us was to let them know that one, we weren't reinventing anything. We were just making sure that we have a space where if I wanted to go open up a business today, where can I go and who's closest to me in order to get those things that I need. And that's the biggest piece of it. So even the meeting in May was after I had already revised our questionnaire, and they got to pick it apart if they wanted to say, oh, I don't think we need this in, or maybe we need to add this, and this is unique to Memphis. So let's make sure that they know that we offer this. So once we did those things, we met with the developer. Like I said, our questionnaire is done. We're just going to do the rollout in September. But we had around 40 that have participated so far.
Thank you, Tim. All right, one more question from Mr. Elliott.
Mr. Elliott, you had a question?
Did you have your hand raised, Michael?
So can you guys hear me? Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Elliott. I'm from Cleveland Neighborhood Progress here in Cleveland, Ohio. We're a nonprofit intermediary working in the CDC space. My question, one of the things that we notice as we engage with various service providers, um, a lot of service providers advertise that, hey, we do kind of everything. You know, we have business plan development, access to resources. But we also identified that there are strengths and weaknesses for every organization. Were there any kind of initial triaging to kind of find out, hey, yes, you may do all these different things, XYZ organization, but what do you do best so that when you're actually supporting businesses and helping them navigate the various resources, you're making sure that you are they're going to the right one that gives them the biggest bang for the buck, for lack of a better term. And then my second question, was there any kind of follow-up with the businesses regarding their experiences with the various stakeholders, whether it's business service providers or anything like that? Thank you.
So thank you for those questions. So for I'll answer the second person question first. Like I said, we have not launched ours yet, so we don't have that data to support that yet, to say like how's their experience been with that. But we will be capturing that data. The first part of it is around the particular things that people offer. One of the things that's unique about Memphis is that we had something called a Greater Memphis Neighborhood Plan that came out in about 2009, which really drove the force around what we have now, which is Memphis 3.0, which is our city comprehensive plan. And a part of building Memphis is really holding on to those goals and priorities and putting them into every aspect of what we do, specifically around community development. And of that, we have different planning districts. So Memphis is split into different parts of the city that goes along with that comprehensive plan. So on the questionnaire, the organization picks out what district they're more aligned with. It might be a couple of them, they might be all, but in a lot of cases, you might have an organization that is specifically for downtown. Like you might have 10 organizations that are doing they might do co-starter programs or 10-week entrepreneurship programs, but it might be one downtown in Westwood in North Memphis. So that's what's kind of, helped to not have people fighting over, those same spaces. So we really haven't seen that yet, especially when we went through the questionnaire. They really loved having it broken down by districts so people can actually see what's available to them, closest to them in their neighborhoods.
Great question, Mike. I love that.
I
Okay.
want to chime in because I think he was asking about during the CMPP, the program. Initially, as far as what you were asking, we had different people. We had an application process for people who were supporting with technical assistance. And so we did kind of go in and like vet them and talk with them. So I would meet with them one-on-one to see what their specialty was, what the need was. So we did have like a process to try to vet each consultant to bring specific things. But we didn't have a whole lot of people who were doing like a variety of different things. For the most part, we were seeking specific like marketing, and then also looking in kind of getting, some of them even we had referrals for some of the consultants to provide that support. So I hope that answers your question with that. But
It does.
oh, also we worked with, some of the government small business agencies as well to support that we knew who were doing specific work around the city of Memphis already. So there was support with that. And we kind of categorized based on like what the work they were doing. And it was difficult to get them to come in. I'm sorry, I got in the room with somebody else, but it was some challenges initially with trying to work with those agencies, but we were able to kind of navigate relationships with that to be able to help with support and technical assistance. There was another part of the question I think you asked, but I hope I answered what you were asking.
No, you both did. No, thank you very much.
I can't hear you, Michael.
You guys hear me now?
You did. We hear you, Michael. Yeah, yep. You're good. Thank you. Thanks, Marquita. All right, so now we're going to turn the tables a little bit back to everyone else. And Devaney, if you're still there, I'd like you to re-ask your question because it was a good one. Are you still there? And in the meantime, Sierra, would you mind pulling up the other questions from the slide we have for everybody else too?
I am still here.
Great.
I was essentially, in shortened version of the question is, how are community development associations working with government spaces that had DEI initiatives, and because of their nonprofit work, they're able to still support governments meet the needs of the community through their work and deliverables?
Good. That's a great question. Or maybe another kind of precursor question to that is, are people seeing local governments repositioning themselves given the environment as it relates to DEI? And have you considered your role in that in one way or another? What that looks like going forward?
Well, here in Cleveland, what I'm finding, typically as a result of just how segregated the city is, especially along the river, it's kind of built in. I mean, my population that I serve is mostly African American, for example. If I'm speaking on behalf of one CDC, I can't help but to do quote unquote DEI stuff because that's who all I serve in my particular neighborhood. So from CMP's point of view, we're still doing the work, even though we have the, federal changes and perspectives out there. It's still happening. We still need to make sure that we're helping underserved populations. There's still a need out there. So for us, it really hasn't changed. Maybe have to language things a little bit differently, but the mission is still the same. We're seeking how we can support the community development corporations as they go about developing low-income neighborhoods, if that's who their constituents are.
And has the city's stance changed, Michael? Either the city of Cleveland or Cuyahoga County?
I don't think so. No, it's really interesting kind of when you're hearing on the news versus what I'm seeing on the ground. We're still doing the same work. Nothing has changed. It might sound different, but we're still helping low-income neighborhoods. You still need to get funding out there. You still need to provide that TA. So from my perspective here in Cleveland, I still see that we're doing the same thing. Nothing really has changed. Now, money may have dried up. Now that might be, but we've been very creative in how we go about kind of implementing the work as well.
For those other, I wanted to come back to, I think it was, I apologize, I think it was Ms. Miller's question about contractor capacity in Alabama, where she is from. And if you have anything directly to her question about contractors, that would be great. But if not, I mean, I think if not specific to contractors, are there any community related needs broadly defined that a more robust small business ecosystem in Memphis could serve? Or does anyone else have, and this, maybe I could reframe it for everyone. Does anyone else have experience trying to address a community need through a more robust small business network?
So I'll chime in again. Sorry, I don't like it being too quiet. um, so here in Cleveland, we had a group that's called the Business Growth Collaborative. So once a month, all of the various stakeholders within Cuyahoga County came together once a month to do two things. One, we provided opportunities for small businesses to come into a single room, whether virtually or in person, to see all of the various faces from all the different service providers. So let's just call it like a one-stop shop. They were able to pitch their idea or they pitch their problem in front of all of the various service providers all at once. That way, they're in the network, and that's something that we preach all the time. How important it is for entrepreneurs to make sure that they're visiting the various resource service providers to build those relationships before the need is actually happening. And then, as a network, we use that opportunity to share best practices. Um, One of the things that we're finding is that typically one business owner is going to all the different locations so that they're being raised up in conversation. Oh, well, you worked with them, well, I worked with them as well too. Here are some of provided that we're not doing any privacy issues, but if they're having problems or they maybe have some insights about that particular entrepreneur, they can share that to either better position the business owner or maybe have one of those come to Jesus moments like, hey, you're having that same issue over there, have that same issue, but let's see how we can overcome that issue by working together. But we found that here in city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County, um, really having these regular one-on-one meetings with the business owners as a group was very helpful over the past couple of years as well. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, I think that information was helpful. I've been able to glean some information on how we can, from the residential home builder standpoint, how we can take some of these tactics and work with these small businesses from the ground up. So thank you for that information.
Yeah, I think, and the Building Memphis was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of a strong ecosystem of small businesses is that needs like that there's a way for those needs to get identified and get addressed in some way, right? That's kind of the definition of a small ecosystem, of a strong ecosystem.
Yes, absolutely. And this part with it being like the small business ecosystem is just one piece of what we're trying to do here to instead of things trickling down, we're really looking at we're in the community, we're talking to our members and we're looking at what they want to do for themselves and their surrounding areas. And we're going back to those people who might not necessarily be in those communities and say like, hey, this is what is needed. And right now, small businesses really need your help and you have help, but you're not you're not in their neighborhood. So we just need to make sure that both of those things are in the same space. So that's a big part of the work.
Okay. Any last comments before we wrap up?
I just put in the chat a link to the Business Growth Collaborative work that we're doing over the past couple of years if anybody want to learn more about it.
Thank you, Michael. Well, thank you, everyone. As you leave the breakout room, you will be getting an evaluation surveys. Thank you for your attention to that. And I believe in November, the peer learning network will be focusing on a program in Philadelphia around their commercial corridor management program, which is a partnership between the Philadelphia Association of CECs, its members, and the city of Philadelphia. So thank you, and thank you to Ms. Morris and Klondike Smoky City. Thank you to BLDG Memphis. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Thursday and stay in touch.
Thank you.